Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a hefty dose of optimism. I'm your co host, Seth Boyd,
And I am Megan Tierney.
and we're coming out with kind of rare for us a movie that's pretty recent, an indie movie,
I
a smaller one. And I would say the biggest change, as listeners may have
was gonna
noticed,
say,
I am typically selecting our films, and there's not exactly an equal division of labor, folks. But Megan, you do the editing, which is much harder. I pick the movies, which is much easier. But
not necessarily true, but thank you,
well,
Seth.
I would acknowledge your hard work. Um, as this come up, often I'm such a movie you've not seen before, but this we want to switch it up occasionally, and this is one of those cases, a film that was in
Mhm.
your top list from your
Yeah.
top watch in 2023, a movie that I did not even know about until that
Mhm.
episode, and we got to record that together. So I'll let you tell folks what it is.
Absolutely. Well, this is special to me for kind of many reasons. The first
Yeah.
being that it is a first watch for me and second watch for Seth, basically. It's like uh but
Mhm.
basically this is also the name of the film is called Fremont. Fremont happens to be my hometown, literally where I grew up. They
Yeah.
filmed everything basically in Fremont. It's partially set in Fremont and Oakland, I believe. So there's
Mhm.
great, mostly Fremont, I would say, great shots of both of those cities. A little bit also I learned in Morgan Hill, which is really nice.
Oh, that makes
Yeah,
sense
some
actually. I can see it. Yeah.
the valley scenes.
Mhm.
But this is obviously my I was so excited to see my hometown. And to be fair to Seth, I didn't know that this movie existed until shout out again to my local library that they put on a screening of it.
Mm.
And so that was kind of special for me as well. I got to see the movie Fremont at the Fremont like main library, our local library. I watched it with my mom, and it was kind of the first I remember screening, having attended like basically post COVID. So, and it's one of the it was a this film is very indie darling at its finest. But I was really kind of
Mm.
proud to see like the community embrace it a lot, and like people were laughing at the right parts, and
Mm.
the library the library can be a bit of a stuffy audience, and
Yeah.
everybody was great. Like everybody was so into it. So it really warmed my heart in that regard. Like people were very gung-ho about this community like effort film, and I think that's basically what it is. It really is like I say, extremely indie.
Yeah.
So what a fun change of pace, and I am so excited to hear if Seth enjoyed it, which I think that
I did.
he
I
probably
loved
would.
it.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
so glad.
I absolutely loved it. I want to get into it more in just a second, but I'm glad you said about the stuffy audience at the library because it was listening to an interview with Lily Gladstone, who was the lead actor in Killers of the Flower Moon, Native American actor,
Mhm.
talks about that kind of strange phenomenon of a a stuffy audience of a certain, let's maybe typically a kind of older liberal
Yep.
who doesn't recognize something's actually funny in
Hmm.
an indie movie. It's like, no, this is a
Hmm.
joke. It's okay to laugh. Like, we're talking about something serious, but there's jokes here, and
Yeah.
just like witnessing that a lot and being a lot of indie movies. So,
Oh my
and there's
gosh.
definitely this that was great. So, I also acknowledge, yeah, you were braver in watching movies than I do in the sense of like you'll go to a movie that you have not heard of by a director you haven't heard of,
Mm.
and I will very rarely do that.
Oh wow.
I don't know which one of us actually we can compare Letterboxd, which one of us actually where it watches more movies. I feel like it's
Uh-huh.
probably pretty close, but it's pretty rare for me to because there's so many filmmakers that I love who I have not seen all their films by and who are still working or there's like have a back catalog that like I have so many movies to watch that it's pretty rare for me to see a new indie movie
Hmm.
by someone I haven't heard of, and that's my own hang
Yes.
up. So, we balance each other out with you,
Oh man. Well,
with
I
you
mean,
being willing to do that for the podcast. So thank you.
like I said, I was biased completely going in. I said it's free, but I'll try to see what it's
Of
about,
course.
and luckily we got a great watch out of it, basically. And I hadn't known this director either. So
Yeah.
the director is Babak Jalali, and they have a
Hmm.
sizable. They have maybe like 5 or so feature films under their belt and have
Yeah,
pretty
this is their fourth one, and they're still working. They have something else coming out soon. Yeah.
they and from what I saw, like pretty high accolades.
Hmm.
So it was truly unknown. I'll spoil it now that like Jeremy Allen White is in this movie. He
Hmm.
plays quite
Yes.
a B character, but and
Hmm.
I went in literally not knowing that. I I kind of like I liked it for that regard too. Was it didn't like spit out that here's this big who truly is kind of a bigger rising star.
Right.
It was very much
Right.
about our main actress, who is actually this was her first film as well, and she took on the role because this was basically her life, very similar to a life story. It was kind of like an open casting call situation, and the main actress is
Mm.
in every single frame of this thing, and she did great. She did really, really good. And then also, what a treat! She was at the screening, so that was
Oh, you got to
really
meet her.
so cool. Yeah, she was
That's
she
so
was
cool.
great. She's which was another part of it, like just seeing that the filmmakers
Yeah.
were so passionate about the thing that they made. So it was
Yeah.
just great. It was so fun.
That's awesome. And so I don't know if you've said her name yet. That's that Anaita Wali Zada, I believe is the pronunciation,
Yes.
but
Hmm.
fantastic. It's something in looking up this movie because this movie I've spent time in Fremont, mostly hanging out with you, and we're going to talk more about this. And there's a little bit of San Francisco in there. There's like Boots
Yeah.
Riley is in a couple scenes in this movie,
Yeah.
who's
Hmm.
we've talked about before with the Sorry to Bother You, a Oakland native, very
Yes.
proudly. So this movie is very Bay Area,
Yeah.
and um, which is obviously cool. If you have a movie named after a city, you better know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just have to. I'm curious, like, who did the research here? Because Babak Jalali is Iranian born, and they mostly
Uh-huh.
are reside in England or Paris. And this is
Right.
co-written by another woman, Carolina Cavalli. I shouldn't say another. Babak is a man, by Carolina Cavalli. And then I saw, well, she must be from Fremont. And I'm looking this up. No,
Yeah.
Carolina's from Italy. So who did the
Right.
research to know these specific references? Because
Hmm.
our main character is Afghan,
Hmm.
and that's very important to the plot. So shout
Right.
out to the writers and co-writer and director and
Hmm.
his other co-writer for doing this research, because there's a lot of specific things in here that are very true to the Bay Area. There's some kind of broad strokes. It's not like they're going to known restaurants that only locals would know about, and
Hmm.
that's fine. This movie doesn't need to do that. It's a very small, pleasant movie, but there is enough specific things in there that like you wouldn't just know this. And Fremont's not a city you would have just heard of unless you did some
It's true.
research. So
Uh-huh.
I'm very curious to hear more about how this story came to be. Um, but I just after issue making, I love this. I watched this today. It was such a fun,
Yay.
pleasant watch,
Yeah.
and um, no, let's get into it. Why don't you start?
Yeah. Well, like you say, um, this movie follows the main actress, and she truly is in every
Mm,
frame of this thing. It's basically her story, but she is a young Afghan woman living in Fremont, California. And actually, a quick
yeah,
fun fact is that Fremont does like historically have like a very high percentage of Afghan population for some reason. Just like
I think it's the highest outside of Afghanistan, isn't it?
that's correct. Yeah.
Mm,
So it is literally like historically accurate about the people migrating over to from Afghan to
mm,
here, and in certain like asylum and refugee situations too. And she is a young
yeah.
Afghan refugee and living fully alone and living starting from the basically the bottom in the Bay Area and working. The goal is basically in our first part of this movie is to find a job and
Mm,
just kind of get things going. And so she's looking around, and she lands a job, an unusual job um, at a fortune cookie company.
mhm.
Um, First in the factory just itself, but then she gets promoted. I guess I don't know if that would be promotion, but someone
I
has
think
to
it's a pay
write the
bump. Yeah,
fortune. Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, that's a dream job. She gets promoted
You'd be
to
great
being
at that,
able.
Megan.
Thank you. And it's the essence of writing. Well, anyway, she writes the fortunes in the fortune cookies.
Yeah.
One, never thought about who does that. I thought it was a mass produced thing. I love that it's like
Yeah.
it's just some random person. And two, it's there's a big like metaphorical aspect to it. There's a bit of romanticism that goes along with this process for her of writing fortune cookies, and kind of she's writing her own destiny as well, and she's kind of also very there's a loneliness of this film and of this person, and she's trying to connect. So I think that that was really beautifully done, and she kind of spins her story from there and is just trying to connect with people in this
Yeah.
kind of strange land. And it there's just so many things that I think they touch on really nicely and subtly in a way that's
Mhm.
nods to people that I guess would know about Fremont. But I think that Fremont can be very like um it's definitely like not a bustling, so it's not a city, certainly it's very
Sure.
suburbia, so I think they capture that California suburbia kind of nicely.
Hmm.
And like you say, it's not very descript, it is kind of general, but
Right.
it's very specific in certain ways.
Yeah, and I mean even like the fortune cookie, like two of the major fortune cookie factories like in the world are in Oakland and San Francisco, and she works in San Francisco. One of these are real things. I
And it was a
was
Bay Area
homeschooled, so I
invention.
literally didn't go on a field trip. But yes,
Sorry.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we got to get to that in a second. But I was gonna say like these are like pretty common if you're going to school in the area. You did like a school trip, a field trip,
Yeah, it's
one of
true.
these. So you hit on something that we should talk about a little bit because you and I probably know this as California natives, but I think there's some great fun melting pot moments with the fortune cookie. It was the cookie itself is based off a Japanese cookie, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
becomes an American invention to have in Chinese restaurants. And this is an
Yep.
Afghan woman working there, so it really is kind of like there's almost nothing more American than a fortune cookie.
that's
you
that's how
know,
I thought. Yeah, 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 I
it,
agree.
it's like the Italian American pasta dishes. You know, like
Oh my
they're
god.
made by Italians in America. They're great. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
yeah, there's that kind of undercurrent, and I frankly liked that it didn't get too into that whole thing. It just kind of lets it. The imagery is kind of obvious. You know, you
Yeah.
have like, and her coworker for most of it is a white woman. That's her,
Yeah.
and it's owned by Chinese people. But like, there's um, the what's the word I'm looking for here? The kind of again melting pot, the
Yeah.
mixing of well, the assimilation,
I think
and
so.
the attempts of that is kind of there.
And that's specific to the
um,
Bay. Like that's not a like let's
yeah.
throw people in there. That is what would happen. Like I all
Mhm.
of the choices of casting was very believable to me. So that's what made it pretty cool too.
Yeah. So this movie is like I think this is what a lot of people would think an indie movie is.
I think so.
And I mean it
Oh
this way.
yeah.
It's very beautifully shot. It's very simple. And
Yes.
like there is not the big moment where there's a screaming match or something. This is not an angry movie. This is not like a 90s indie thriller or something. There's not a big twist. There's some
Mhm.
really heavy underlinings that we get out of
Mhm.
why she's not in Afghanistan and how even here she's having trouble relating to people for some reasons we'll get into in a second.
Mhm.
But there's a very slight quirkiness to it. It's
Oh
not.
yes.
I I think the aughts, like the 2000s, had I don't know if it was Napoleon Dynamite or what it was, but there was this kind of like gold rush to try and cash in on being a quirky indie comedy that
Uh-huh.
sometimes got way too weird or just too self-consciously trying to do that. I mean, I think like having a manic pixie dream girl type of character is a big part of that.
Yeah.
And it brings us up to say this is not that movie. Every now and then there's just something that's a little kind of quirkily odd
Yes.
that's charming, but it is
Yeah.
not going for weird characters to go for weird characters. And I appreciated that.
Wow. I'm
Um,
Napoleon Dynamite's a great mention. Kind of
yeah,
I would say like of the pace of this because it is it's not even necessarily like I would say a slow burn because it is very slice of life, like
yeah,
extremely slice of lifey. We're not we're not leading up to anything really. We're just kind of watching this life unfold, and life unfold as is as difficult as it is, kind of as it is, or like as it needs to be, sort
Yeah.
of thing. So that
Mhm.
it's very much that, and not like as it was comedic, like
Right.
Napoleon Dynamite was like, I kind of like almost straight comedy, almost like parody, I would say, but this is
Yeah.
very like dry humor comedy. And our main actress, she mentioned like that's a characteristic true of like Afghan culture in general,
Mm.
and especially
Okay.
like in the States, where your humor might be kind of like toned down because you're either
Mhm.
assimilating to American culture, or just like maybe it's even grasped on language or something like that. So it was just she mentioned that it was specifically accurate to Afghan people in general. And I think just maybe like culturally they're like a more subdued culture. But man, I thought it was like people were laughing a lot in the screening, and we were
Yeah,
too.
it's
And
funny.
it's
Yeah,
funny.
absolutely. It's a funny
Uh-huh.
movie, and it's and I'm glad to hear that because I mean, like, there's some like, okay, did everyone laugh? All right, spoiler. She gets the promotion because the original, I shouldn't say the original, the person who's at the start of the movie and job of writing the fortunes just dies at work, just like
Yes.
somewhat older woman whose face just like flops into her keyboard, and then it just cuts to the owner saying, "Yeah, she's dead," and like
Yep.
politely and cheerily. And this isn't like a, and he's not a cruel guy. I thought the owners were really interesting because you have a husband and a wife. The wife is very money pinching. She's like, they have a coffee vending machine that sucks, and it's like, oh,
Oh
it's
yeah.
okay, I made coffee, and then our main character gets a cup of coffee, then the owner's wife's like, that'll be 250, and it's not
They make her
joking.
pay. Yeah,
You know, so and it really wants to fire her when something goes wrong.
I know.
But I thought that the male owner was sweet and actually pretty sincere in how much he loved the fortune cookies, which is
I
a
agree.
an odd. There's only so much nuance to any industry, and for this to be like, this is what my dad did, it's what I do, and I love it, is there's always something kind of enduring about that.
I think so.
As someone who did not follow into their father's footsteps work wise. uh,
Right. He's the marketing and she's the business,
yes,
probably the
exactly.
business
That's very
woman
true.
who does his dumb
He's kind of
whims or
he's going
whatever.
off of vibes, and she's looking at bottom line, and
Yeah, yeah.
she's
But it
not wrong.
worked. It
Yeah, it
makes it
works
work.
out though.
So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that was a big laugh. That which I was really happy. Yeah, big laugh
yeah,
there.
because it
And
definitely
it,
felt like a joke, and like it's
right.
obviously happens
Mhm.
plot wise, but and it's not cruel, it's not gratuitous, but it's funny.
Yeah. It kind of stylized too. Like it, I don't know. It wasn't like I said, for me it wasn't like a parody at all. I think it was just
Right.
very dry, like specifically dry. A
Hmm.
lot of the humor's like that. The other, I really love she also starts seeing a therapist.
Hmm.
I believe he's like a therapist or a psychiatrist, and he's extremely dry. And
He's a psychiatrist because he gives her a prescription,
that's right.
and
And
but
that's
they are
her
meeting
whole,
kind of in that capacity of
that's
doing legal
right.
sessions. Yeah.
She kind of gets a little bit tricked almost into doing a talk therapy with this guy. But
Yeah.
and her premise, which is, I mean, another thing is her premise is she wants sleeping pills
Hmm.
because she can't sleep at night. So fair, she wants that. But then they in true American healthcare fashion, they go through a really convoluted way of like getting there, which includes basically
Yeah.
doing therapy with this
Hmm.
very 90s-esque therapist. Like he was very like late 90s to me. Um
Yes.
and he's very dry, and
He's
also
a really interesting character because like he's sincere, and
he is.
he's very simple with his words, and it feels like partially is, he's really interesting. Like, he's not completely incompetent. He's often is able to simply state something that she does need to hear,
Yeah.
and and it does come out that, while she's not full on diagnosed, like, those are a lot of reasons why she would have PTSD, and
Hmm.
um there's complications about like she left Afghanistan, her family's back there. She's considered a traitor by a lot of people, including local Afghans, because she was a translator for the U.S. Army. So there's
That's
obviously
right.
a lot more going on than just I need sleeping pills, and he knows that. But he's also incompetent in these kind of odd ways of telling her my favorite immigrant story is White Fang. She's like the dog book, and he's serious,
Oh yeah.
and which is again another Bay Area thing with Jack London. There's
Oh
Jack
yeah.
London Square in Oakland. It's named after him because he, I can't remember if he's from there, but he definitely spent a lot of time there.
That's right.
Um, but he's actually not joking, and you kind of get more into this. Like there is some parallels to White Fang and the kind of immigrant experience. Obviously, a white guy saying, "I my favorite immigrant dog" has some unstated and
Yeah.
unpleasant implications, but he is not a openly racist. He's not trying to be, and this is also his specialty. Like he is part of a visa program to
Uh-huh.
work with Afghan refugees. So like this is a thing he's doing a lot, and it's
Yeah.
a thing he's kind of volunteering on, but it is still a tedious, not fully understanding doctor. you know, so I thought
Definitely.
those scenes felt very genuine, where we don't. I feel like a movie made by an American about this subject would have had a lot more speeches. Like there would have been a lot more like, well, here's what you don't understand because of this, and we don't need that. It's very
Yeah.
obvious. Like the subtext is more apparent and more beautiful without it being stated. so
Oh, that's a good
I
way to
appreciate
put it.
that.
That's a good way to put it. I feel like yeah, there was a lot of I think that they really got the nuance of like just kind of assimilation like into the
Yeah.
country really well because it would be so awkward and bumbling and
Yeah.
they pit like culture against each other really well, I think.
Yeah.
Like the therapist is a great example and I love there's a scene where I think he's reading White Fang to her and he starts choking up, which was
Yes.
amazing. Like that was insane.
That was very
And she
fun.
kind of quietly comforts him. So like it just shows I just
Mm-hmm.
love the kind of duping of like
No, that was a
our
great scene.
some people's like tendencies, I guess, or like some people's ideologies
Mm,
in America and the way that they deal with uncomfortable situations and things that basically we wouldn't know, like we don't know about. And
right.
but it was still very sincere. Like I think that that was such a nice little heartfelt moment.
Yeah. I so I think I have to give some shout out to Jeremy Allen White because
Uh-huh.
and I will be honest, this is the first time I've seen him in something. I've not watched The Bear yet. I'm sure it's
Oh
great.
my. Yeah.
Are you a fan of it?
So I had like just finished almost watching all of The Bear. Like so
Yeah.
and like I said, I went in not knowing he was in this at all. So I was like,
Mm,
ah, that's like a huge actor.
yeah.
So yeah, crazy. It was pretty cool.
My understanding at the time of this is there's already like one, maybe even two seasons of The Bear filmed when he did this. So I thought that was very cool that he's in this small movie. Um, I mean, I think he's about to be in larger. Like there's been talk of him being on Marvel or something, and
Oh
good for
wow.
him, get that check. But I also love that he's doing this,
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I liked the marketing for it. From what I saw, was not the bait and switch of see the new Jeremy Allen White movie. He is in the trailer limitedly in a way that makes I think apparent he's not going to be in it that much, and he's at the ending.
Mhm.
Um, I think I was describing this movie to my wife, and it's like nothing too bad happens in this movie. There's a cruel trick played on our protagonist by
Oh.
the boss's wife. That and sorry, we have not said our character's name yet. Her character, the lead character is Donya.
Mhm.
Um, there's a bit of a not even prank, just like a kind of intentional thing from the boss's wife, who was mad at Donya for writing a fortune she doesn't approve
That's right.
of
Mhm.
basically tricking her into driving to Bakersfield, which for folks not in the area, that's like a 4 hour drive,
Oh yeah.
5 hour.
If that.
Yeah, yeah, and I have thoughts on Bakersfield, I won't say. It isn't kind of it is in Central Valley. It's a pretty populous area, but it
Uh-huh.
is quite a drive.
It
And
is.
if unless you know a lot of people there, it's a very long drive for the blind date Donya thinks she's going on, and instead she's kind of tripped into picking up a delivery of something for her work.
That's right.
But on the way down there meets Jeremy Allen White mechanic, and
Hmm.
so they have their strange little meet cute. And it ends on a pretty hopeful note of them hanging out again. And I thought going back to the understatedness of it,
Yeah.
he's very kind of awkwardly says, "I've never met an Afghani." She says, "It's Afghan." It's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
sorry. You know, he's not
Yep.
too politically aware, and he's also not scolded for not being more politically aware.
Yeah.
This ends with them hanging out and having another coffee, and it's very
Hmm.
cute. And there's
It's
hope
true.
of this be blossoming into a romance in a very, again, understated, sweet way that I have not seen in a movie in a long time. And
Yeah.
that was very refreshing. It was just nice,
I
and
know.
um, yeah. What did you think of that whole dynamic and that kind of sequence of events? Because there's a romance flair throughout this whole movie, but I also do like that it's not a romantic movie in the traditional sense of you really hope these two people in particular end up together, you
Yeah.
know. And
I,
she doesn't really have a suitor till the last like 20 minutes of it.
that's true. It's kind of like, I mean, she was also, I think, trying to date a little bit throughout it, and
Hmm.
that's hard in of itself. And she's trying in this place that she doesn't know. So there's, I think it is a little bit of like a romantic ending. I mean, literally, but also visually for her
Yeah.
growth in the film of she's a young woman. She's trying to just figure things out, especially on her own. And it was I thought it was very cute too. I was very like swoon worthy for me.
Hmm.
It reminded me of like it reminded me of old film
Yeah.
also like pretty typically. And
Yeah.
also we should we'll state that it's filmed in black and white, so
Yes.
maybe
Yeah, that's right. We haven't
that
said that before.
contributed to it a
It
little
looks
bit.
fantastic. That's a very good
It
point.
really does.
'Cause I was
Yeah.
thinking of for movies we've talked about here, Clea from 5 to 7, you
Yes.
know, has that like what's going to happen next? I don't know, but there's a connection.
Hmm.
Um,
It's true. It's
and
nicely
like he's
done.
not in Bakersfield, he's on the way down, so he's closer, but
Yeah.
still presumably a couple hours away.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
very. It's very like a look fairy tale esque because he's this hunky mechanic working out
Mhm.
in the middle of nowhere that she just kind of stumbles upon. So to me, that
Yeah.
was a little bit romanticized, if you will.
Well, so if I have a bone to pick with this movie,
Hmm.
it's one line about, yeah, you can borrow the car, but it needs an oil change would have made more sense, because the idea of being in the middle of driving to Bakersfield, driving 5 hours and thinking like I got to stop for in the middle of nowhere for an oil change. It's like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about? Like, that's a
Oh,
that's the thing.
true.
That's the thing before doing a long distance.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
so or just like this, the sign comes on or something like that while she's driving.
Good edit. That's a good edit.
Yeah, but I it's a small indie movie that I really enjoyed, so that's a very small bone to pick. um,
I agree with
um,
you. Just quickly about Jeremy Allen White too. Like, unfortunately, I have seen where YouTube did a
yeah.
bait and switch basically where they added his name to the trailer.
Oh,
Maybe that was
really?
more recent. I think that was actually fairly recently because it may have came up for me like because I was like searching around for it and stuff, and
Mm.
that one has significantly more views and comments than the original. So
Uh,
it was certainly a tactic. But yeah, people should know that he's like I said in the beginning, kind of a B character and
yes.
just kind of a nice topper. But yeah, this is such a small film, and the filmmakers that were there talked about how much they kind of stretched, and he was kind of up in the air and but
Mm.
very much wanted to do it. So like it was just really nice. Like I it sounded very sincere of him. And
Yeah.
they said he tried to like go to a coffee shop in Fremont and got completely swarmed like
Oh,
mid filming. I was like
oh,
So it seems humble in that regard too. Like he wouldn't even realize that people were, watching at the time. But yeah, he's great in it too. I think he kind of understood the assignment in terms of what he's supposed to
Yeah.
be, what he's supposed to be for it.
Mm. He I'm glad to hear you describing him as hunky because he definitely is, but he's an odd looking guy and a very
I
classic.
agree.
So many great Hollywood actors, like we've talked about Humphrey Bogart before,
Mm-hmm.
are not the traditional handsome. Like he doesn't look like Brad Pitt per se. You know,
No.
he's an odder looking guy, which I think makes him all the more interesting and attractive. And obviously does. He's a heartthrob, and he's like, that's not my opinion. That's
Oh yeah.
mass opinion. He's known as that.
Yeah.
But it was, but I think his kind of odd looking at him being in like a jumpsuit, and he's a pretty lanky guy, does add to this kind of doe-eyed, lonely guy who is very much wants to shoot his shot and flirt with the beautiful woman who came into his shop, while also not being not crossing the line. And he seems very timid and aware of that being a possibility. Her main character, Donya, is great. I do have to say, among the favorite scenes of this movie, her rehearsing going on a date by herself at her apartment was adorable. Her
Yes.
practicing um, sitting down and
Yeah.
receiving a compliment and responding to it, all that, very cute.
Oh my god.
um, uh, right, Audrey Hepburn. But
Yeah.
we have a lot of small characters in this movie, a lot of brief interactions. Um, that felt very normal. It felt like these are the people you have a small interaction with who are not necessarily a friend that you're hanging out with, but you're going
Yeah.
to spend some time this way um, after work. Did you have a favorite?
That's I'm glad you mentioned it too. Actually, I'm realizing that it's kind of a bigger cast than
Yeah,
typically an indie film kind of warrants and or can
that's
even
true.
just budget.
Mm,
We touched on good ones. I agree that I really liked and kind of believed the fortune cookie
hmm.
owner. He was very believable
Yeah,
and there is a sincerity to a lot of them and I think mine was I it was pretty hard to get over there's a lot and what I'm thinking even her friend is very sincere and like um they go like karaokeing and she's just kind of nuts and like letting loose
yeah,
um and Donya
yeah.
just kind of entertains it but I that seems
Mm,
very accurate too. I
mm,
loved the psychiatrist that turned therapist so I don't know there's just she's kind of lucky. She's interacting with, she's meeting good people too, which is it's nice.
yeah,
It's not. I appreciate kind of that it's not this terrible, tear down for her. I think it's
yeah,
her interactions are pretty normal and relatively nice
yeah.
with a lot of these people. So I don't know. I just her whole ensemble is kind of doing it for me.
And it is interesting. Like most of her interactions are with men.
Oh,
She has
that's
her
true.
best friend at work is what's her name?
Oh, I forget. I like
Is it Az or something?
or something.
All right,
Let me see.
forgive us on this one, folks.
Oh, Joanna.
The white friend at work,
Her
Joanne.
name
Sorry,
might.
and
Yeah.
then and yeah, I think it's Joanne, and Joanne is often talking about men,
Yeah.
and Donnie's not necessarily expressing a whole lot of interest in men, but has that, and like it kind of comes out and has a little bit of guilt about it. Um,
Hmm.
and you have the owner's wife, owner of the business. There's a great interaction where he says, "Well, you know what it's like to be that age." It's like, no, I don't. At that age, I was married and I had a kid.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if like to be single. So there's definitely this old world expectation because there are also immigrants of where a woman should be at her age,
Yeah.
and the only Afghan woman here she has is a mother, and
Yeah.
has the husband who is always ending their interactions, and it
That's
becomes
true.
there's a bit of a confrontation there that's one sided towards the end that she really stands up for herself. But I liked that while we have all these interactions, and some of them are maybe more fatherly figures, like the therapist or her boss or like the
Uh huh.
restaurant owner, and the other one being Salam, who's often having trouble sleeping as well. So they're just kind of
Oh
chatting
yeah. Her
on the
neighbor.
kind of balcony of their apartment.
Right.
I like that there was nothing gross about these man. These were
Yeah.
more. This movie didn't really cross that line, and that's not that we can't handle that. But there's a weird innocence to this movie
Yes.
that I like it stuck with, because obviously we have PTSD, we have war zones, we can get to some pretty dark places, and it's
Hmm.
alluded to very lightly, and I thought that was great. But I like the
Yeah.
restaurant owner, and I like
Really.
and
Yeah.
the who just really wants her to get caught up in this soap opera that
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
seems to have some of these worst things happening,
I know.
and um, which is maybe the most you see of it. There's like suggestions of bad things happening to women in the soap opera
Ah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he's watching. That was an interesting
Yeah.
commentary, but she just comes in there as always the only one eating there, and he's just smoking and saying, "You got to see this episode."
Yeah.
and
It's very nice. I think it's a subtle like maybe a way to advise her being some random dude and knowing that she's just there alone or seeing that she eats there alone every
yeah,
time or something. I think it is like
right.
a little bit of like here's my distant advice to you kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I got right
Yeah,
away too.
yeah. I did miss. We should talk about Boots Riley and his daughter. That's his daughter playing his daughter. Actually,
Oh, I
they
didn't
both
know.
great as
Oh,
themselves.
very
They have
nice.
this cute interactions of them eating noodles at a Chinese restaurant, and this kind of montage of people opening her fortunes. I thought that was very sweet. I thought she did a good job in the fortunes.
Yep.
Um, but great to see that. I did miss California a lot watching this movie, especially oddly, not even like the city shots, but when she is driving Bakersfield, she is passing through the Golden
Yep.
Hills and the California oak trees, and we just have a different fucking tree here, and it's worse in Milwaukee. Sorry, folks. Sorry, local Wisconsin folks.
That's right,
I
Seth.
miss what an oak tree looks like in California. It's a completely different plant. Yes,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Um,
No, I can attest
like
to
nothing
it.
makes me as nostalgic as a certain set of trees.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I'll attest to it. Like, well, and specifically to Fremont, I think like it was such a treat.
yeah,
Like it really was. It was you got a BART shot, which is kind of like if you're in the Bay, they'll show you a
right,
BART
right.
shot, whatever, and you're hyped up and whatever. But like they used a very old family diner that was almost going to close
Mm.
in that diner scene. It's
Oh,
called
really?
Dino's. It's been there forever, and the
Mm.
community rallied around it that it wouldn't close. Not necessarily
Oh,
because of the
good.
movie, but
Yeah.
people, that's just everybody's would go there after church or whatever, and we did the same.
Oh,
So it was just
no,
so
that's
cool.
cool.
The mechanic shop is in Niles, right off of
Oh my God,
right
we went
off of
there.
Niles. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm sure Jeremy like went to Niles for
yeah,
coffee,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is what I think about. I like that's just so cool to me. So
That's
there was
awesome.
just so many fun like where I looked at every scene to be like, well, where are they? And her apartment is perfectly accurate to a tiny little
For
tiny little Fremont apartment. There's a lot of
yeah,
like 90s charm, I would say, to Fremont and some of these
yeah. I
older
think that's true in the
looking.
architecture.
That's why
Yeah,
I like it's definitely a mix. We have like 80s, 70s-esque places all the way up to 90s to brand new like high rises going on right now because of the tech boom and
yeah,
stuff and people moving out here. So there's a mix of everything. It doesn't look like one thing. And I think
yeah.
it looked very accurate.
Um, Megan, it would be inappropriate for me to say the Hollywood significance of Niles, but you should address that with
Well, true.
yeah,
I'm surprised it's not like kind of more well known, but Niles
yeah,
was Charlie Chaplin's like stopping ground. They thought it was going to be the next Hollywood back in the
mm,
20s, probably like a little earlier. But
mm,
they have a little silent film museum. They have the Niles on the hillside, like stamped into the hillside like it is in Hollywood. So we were almost Hollywood over here in
yeah,
NorCal, basically. Really glad that didn't happen for
yes,
my sake. But Niles is my favorite little town. It is so cute, and
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty. I wish they had a little bit more in the movie. To be honest, I thought they were going to
sure,
kind of touch on it, but it's an important part of Fremont. It's so nice to have.
yeah. So, are you aware of what California town a movie named after just got announced?
Oh no, I don't think
There's a
so.
movie coming out called Sacramento,
Oh,
which we've already. I don't want to say we've done because obviously
I thought
you
of
can't
Lady
keep making
Bird.
movies in cities. Yeah, right.
Yep.
Uh, Greta Gerwig is, I guess, not involved in this. Michael Cera's gonna be in it. I don't know who's writing or
Oh,
directing, but obviously not related. But I wonder if any way inspired or what the timeline of that is. But I would love to just have
oh,
smaller cities get a movie
yeah.
made in California. Don't think that's
Or
actually going to be a trend, but could be interesting.
mhm.
I'm kind of curious to see if is Sacramento going to be more about Sacramento. Um, what do we get? Because Lady Bird is very much about Sacramento, and like we
I
talk
thought
about in that
right.
movie, famous people from Sacramento who I didn't realize, like and poets and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Um, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad you brought this movie to my
Oh,
attention, Megan. Um,
I'm just so glad you liked it.
oh, we should say it's streaming right now on Mubi,
Uh-huh.
MUBI, a great app that has a lot of fun, cool stuff like this, a lot of small indie movies and foreign films. Highly
Cool.
recommend that one.
I thought it
And yeah,
showed on Prime, like possibly, but sometimes they
oh,
lie.
really?
Like
Okay.
sometimes my Google literally lies to me. So,
Prime also say it's showing, then you click on them, it's like to rent, which, pay the
oh
money, rent
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, any closing thoughts before we move on to recommendations?
Well, I'm just so glad you liked it, Seth. And this was such a nice watch for me, and
Mm,
this was one that it was really also like the biggest thing was that these filmmakers were like so passionate about what they did,
yeah.
and this made it to Sundance, and it got it went around the Sundance circuit and went around a bunch of film festival circuits and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool. It's important for me for like many reasons, but especially it's just nice that it was like it's very niche, it's very like specific to this particular story, and Fremont is kind of like a beautiful little backdrop to it, and just fun for me
Yeah.
since it's my hometown. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you liked it.
I did. I loved it. I'm so glad you recommended it.
Great.
And yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. And yeah, I think everyone can get a lot out of this. And this is an easy watch. And if you want to kind
Mhm.
of dip your toe into a foreign film, this is a foreign director making this in America. It's in English primarily. If you want to dip
Yeah.
your toe into indie movies, this is a really easy one. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that it's dumbed down or anything. It's clever, it's smart, it's
Hmm.
funny, and it's full of emotion. But it's also um, it's frankly not some of the other movies we've talked about in terms of
Sure.
challenging. This is a great way to start, I think. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Great slice of life.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, with that, let's get into our recommendations. Do you want to start us off, Megan?
Okay. Sure. I'm excited because this is a recent this is a current film recommendation,
Mm,
so it's probably still in theaters actually. We
fantastic.
got to see The First Omen, which is
Oh, yeah.
a a remake of kind of in its own genre of obviously the original Omen from '76 with my boy Gregory Peck, which I also rewatched like in accompaniment of it. But this
Mm,
one is like it is a bit of a prequel basically to the
okay.
original, the very original. This is a directorial debut for a
Mm.
woman director. I'm gonna forget her name. I want to look it up real quick.
While you're looking at it, I just want to say I'm so glad to hear this movie was good because when I heard
It
there's a
was
movie called The First Omen, and my wife said to me, there cannot be a more confusing Google title to search.
oh yeah.
Because if you search the first, because there are like four Omen
Oh,
movies,
there's so many. Don't
and then
don't
there was a
watch
remake.
yeah, don't watch the one and twos maybe, or like or
Yeah,
certainly number one, but like there's like three, four, and they get a little the title
yeah,
cards
they're
start
pretty
looking a little
funky.
wonky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, directorial debut from her name is Arkasha Stevenson,
Okay.
and really, really great. Pretty surprising directorial debut. This film is
Hmm.
really frightening. It was as frightening to me as like um it
Mm.
gave me kind of like Hereditary vibes. It kind of like got under your skin. It was also a bit of like there's pretty good
Oh, okay.
like gore horror going, not necessarily gore, but like bodily horror is what I
Mm.
was trying to say.
Sure.
But just really well done, very suggestive and um just
Mm.
gorgeous, like 70s-esque filmography and like film imagery going on.
Yeah.
So I was and it did get you like on, I think that the first Omen, it does get you kind of psychologically as well, and it's just a really good um like it built upon itself really nicely. This one did too. It was just a very like impressive directorial debut for a horror movie, which was really exciting. And it very kind of it has a bit of like a woman forward lead,
Mm.
especially with the casting, and kind of like the horror elements are very suggestively against some of the horrors that can occur to women. So I thought it was um, worth a watch. It was really well done.
That's great.
Mhm.
Glad to hear that. I was looking for another horror, and anything regarding demonic stuff is really up my alley. So,
Yep, me too.
yeah, we were both raised religious. Yeah, um, that'll do it. Before I say my next film, I have to pick a bone with Google real quick. Did you
Ooh,
Google Fremont and notice what genre it listed it as?
no, I did not.
Google will list Fremont as
Comedy?
drama/short film.
Oh.
Bizarre, and I say that because the movie I'm about to pronounce it had listed as drama/musical, which is a way
Oh,
worse. This is just AI bullshit. I don't
yeah.
know what is happening. I blame AI, and I don't think I'm wrong with predictive text. Google has gotten way worse at
Oh,
finding information,
tell
and
me about it.
smarter people than us can tell you why. All that to say, this movie is not a musical.
Oh my
There
God.
is a piano in one scene that is barely played, and somehow that made it. It's a Japanese movie that is in theaters right now. It's called Evil Does Not Exist.
Oh, okay,
Um,
I heard about it.
saw this at the Milwaukee Film Festival here.
Oh,
It
nice.
is by the Japanese director Raisuke Hibamichi. Hold on,
Hmm.
Hamaguchi. I'm probably not saying any of that right. I apologize. But he did Drive My Car. It was his kind of big international breakthrough, and I really loved that.
Hmm.
So I wanted to see his follow up.
Hmm.
And this is another small, understated movie that has a very kind of trippy ending that, like, normally any kind of ending explained videos are unnecessary. I'm actually
Hmm.
curious to watch them for this because it is a supernatural, strange editing choices are happening, all to imply that things are not what they seem in the last like maybe 20 minutes of this. But the
Wow.
main premise is that this is a small town in Japan, a few hours away from Tokyo, that has kind of always been a vacation town. Like it's in the mountains and lovely nature around, but there's not a big resort. There's not a lot of hotels. There's just some cabins. And a big company is coming in who has not gone into real estate or development at all, and they want to build a glamping site there. And the locals have some very reasonable concerns that come up right away when they see the plans, and they have the town hall meeting of like, you can't have the septic tank there, and it's not big enough. You're going to poison all the water. Just like so
Wow.
many very reasonable things come up, and it kind of comes out pretty quickly. This company doesn't know what they're doing. They're trying to cash in on a I'm trying to remember the term. They're trying to cash in on funding that's available from COVID relief for startup businesses.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're
Hmm.
actually a talent agency who does not know what they're doing,
Oh my
and this is like a
gosh.
major plot point in it. And there's a lot of beautiful things about this movie, and I liked this. May be the first movie I've seen made post COVID. Like this just came out, was just made that dealt with the ramifications of COVID in a very practical way,
Yeah.
and especially like on tourism of like how did this town that was tourist focus, how is it
Hmm.
affected by COVID, and how's it affecting businesses, and in a way that wasn't upsetting to me. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to watch a movie about people getting locked down. Maybe in 20 years. I don't want to watch that anytime soon. And it's
Yeah.
not that, but it also deals with COVID as a fact, and these relief programs happened, and here's a bad thing that came
Ooh.
out of that. Um, but yeah, it's a great, again, another small movie where most of the cast is unknown, um,
Mhm.
and it's just this kind of small battle of these two representatives of the company trying to convince the town, and it becomes clear really quickly who in town they have to convince, and
Oh my
their
gosh.
efforts to do this, and everyone learning from each other. It's a very sweet, small, quiet movie that's, I think, in 90 minutes, much like Fremont, which, big sell
Mhm.
for Fremont's 90 minutes, folks.
Yep.
Um, yeah, highly recommend it. And yeah, it does. And it was like a perfectly, like, there's nothing too strange happening until the last 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And then there is now debate about, well, what really happened.
Uh-huh.
And I hadn't seen a movie that's been that bold to have an ending like that in a while.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like Bo is Afraid, where you kind of can't believe what really happened because it's so
Mm.
strange. That's been strange throughout. It's literally like, wait a minute, which one, like, was one of these things a reality? I don't know. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, I really liked that, and it was unexpected, and I thought, you know, bold if nothing else. So it was fun to see.
Yeah. Very interesting. I realize I haven't seen a post COVID
Yeah,
movie that talks about it, and
right.
nothing even like even big about like something like Contagion or something where they're like making a big uh like action
Sure.
spectacle out of it or something like that, which
Mhm.
I don't know what I'll see first basically, but that would be super interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope you check it out, folks, and Megan as well. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see the first time.
Oh yeah, you'll like it, Seth.
I will. I'm excited.
Hmm.
Okay. I think that's going to do us for now, folks. We have a lot of new episodes coming out.
Yes.
As we approach summer, or depending when this comes out, it is summer. I'm sure there'll be some blockbusters for us to talk about. We might do another like halfway through the
True.
year movies we're excited about, like we did last year. That was fun.
Hmm. I was gonna mention Furiosa is coming out in the time that
Yes.
we're
Oh shit.
recording this. So
Okay.
excited.
Yeah. I think we
Seth's
need to get
having
Riley
a
back. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Existential
um,
crisis here.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so excited for that.
Me too. Um, I'm just gonna say this now. I think Furiosa is probably going to be the best movie Chris Hemsworth's in. I
Bro,
like
well,
Chris Hemsworth.
fair.
He just has done a lot of kind of middle of the road stuff,
Hmm.
and this is, I don't think, going to be middle of the road. So, and I'm not just saying road for all the car puns that'll happen because of this movie, but he doesn't do adult movies that often. I'm not trying to be condescending there, but like Marvel movies, I don't really consider adult. Like they're largely for a large family audience. I like Black Cat quite a bit, the Michael Mann movie, and there's this. But for him to do those kind of R-rated, grittier movies, it's pretty few and far between.
Very
And
true.
maybe there's stuff that I don't know about, or maybe he has a new leaf. I don't know. But excited
Nice.
to see it. But he does look like he's really going for it in the trailer for this. So
I
I'm
was gonna
excited to
say
see it because I know he's capable of it.
it was hard to recognize him. So
Yeah.
I even just that he's doing a character that's not here's Chris Hemsworth in like something,
Yeah.
that was nice.
Yeah, he's not Thor. He's not
He doesn't look
yeah.
like himself, basically.
He's in Bad Times at El Royale. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He plays a cult leader in Bad Times at El Royale, and he's pretty fun at it. But there's that movie's just kind of off in certain ways. It kind of doesn't really find its voice, unfortunately, because there's a lot of fun ideas in it. And but I do like that he's being the charismatic, murderous cult guy
Okay.
in
Hmm.
that. So we might have some shades of that more refined in a
Nice.
Mad Max world, which has a much more clear artistic vision. So I think it would work better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. All right, folks. Plenty to look forward to.
I
um,
know. Oh,
so keep on watching, keep on listening.
us off on our tangents. Yeah, we're so
Yes.
excited. All right, thanks, guys.
All right. Bye.